This is Worksheeting Front Light, Part 2. I've taken the section that we've made last time and fleshed it out a little. I've put the type of light that I chose at the top and each of the barrel choices and the foot candles by each light. So you can see that the light with the shorter throw distance is brighter than the rest. I've also colored in the beams. You shouldn't do this, but I wanted to show the coverage of the system upstage, downstage. So you can see that an actor can walk all the way upstage and all the way downstage while still being lit. However, this is too much coverage. I don't want the downstage light to spill all the way upstage and get all over the set. I want to be able to isolate a little if I'm just turning on one light in my system. So I could go down to a 50-degree barrel, but that would make the light much brighter, and I don't want to muddy my color by having to use it at a low level. But since we're using source 4s, I can use the shutter to cut down the amount of light on the set. That's something I do at focus, but I want to figure that out now so that I'm not making more decisions at focus than I have to. So I'm going to start downstage by cutting this light off the set. I'm using a different color of colored pencil so I don't get the edge of my beam and my shutter cut confused. So this is going to go, I'm going to pick right here. So this cut gets off the set, but it cuts this actor's head off. But that's okay because this actor has their own light. So I'm going to make this decision for each light that I've drawn. So the way that I made that decision is mostly down here about getting off the set, but here I'm also looking at someone coming up the stairs, and I want to make sure that they're lit at 6 feet high, right at the top stair. I don't want them to go through a dark spot right here. This person, I'm going to have to get all over the set here because I want this person to be able to walk through this door without getting their head cut off here. Now I'm going to figure out if these lights are also going to have even coverage from stage left to stage right. And I've emphasized this beam downstage at 1C, just because that's the beam we're going to be working on and I want to see it clearly. So you're going to need a long strip of tracing paper. And first, put the paper down like this so that you have more tracing paper at the longer end of the beam. So here's the downstage part of the beam, here's the upstage part of the beam. So I want more of my paper over there. Next, I'm going to make a tick at my target, which is the actor's head. Then I'm going to draw a line through this tick that's horizontal to the floor and goes from the edge of the beam to the edge of the beam. So that's all the way back here. I don't care if it goes through the wall, and I'm not looking at my shutter cut yet. And on other lights, it's okay if you run out of tracing paper. This is really just to get the shape of the beam so we can rough it in. Next, I'm going to keep this tick in the middle of the actor's head, and I'm going to rotate it so that the line I just drew is aligned with the center of the beam, which is here. So I'm going to take this, rotating it this way. And now the line I just drew is in the center of the beam, and my tick is still in the center of the actor's head. Next, I'm going to make another line through the actor's head, and it's going to be perpendicular to the edge of the beam. So that's going to mean a right angle, and I have a triangle right here. So edge of the beam, and following that straight up to the edge of the beam. And again, I'm still not worried about my shutter cut. I'm looking at the whole beam here. So now you have a cross, and you're going to make this into kind of an oblong shape. I sometimes call this the football. So it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just looking at how to make the beam. So this is good enough. So next, I'm going to realign my tick with the actor's head, putting it this way like I had it before, so my line in the center is parallel with the floor. And now I am going to look at my shutter cut. So my shutter cut crosses the beam, the center of the beam, right here. So I'm going to take and make a straight line here, like this, that cuts the beam off. So this part here is this is the part of the beam that is going to cover the actor's face at 6 feet in the air. So I've put a piece of trace over my ground plan with the pipes on it, and I've traced it in a similar way that I did the section. I don't have to trace every single part of it. I just need the basics. So I've put in the audience risers, I've put in the plaster line and center line. I've put in the set, but just where it's either a level change or there's a wall. And I've put in my areas. You'll notice that I haven't put the pipes in yet. I'm saving myself some work. So next, I'm going to take this beam that I drew. And this beam was for 1 center. That's what it was on the section. So I'm going to put this beam under my trace, and I'm just going to go ahead and trace this part of the beam that I drew in purple. That's what the beam looks like at 6 feet tall at an actor's head height. And it'll show you exactly what it looks like if there's enough coverage to cover upstage, downstage, and stage left, stage right. So I've aligned my tick where the actor's head was with my area point. So I'm going to trace this beam here with its shutter cut line. And I'm not precious about this. I'm just doing this freehand with my colored pencil. So that's what our beam looks like, lighting an actor's face at center line. So you don't have to do each light separately. So I have to do it for lights that are on the same plane, stage left to stage right. So I can actually just copy this one over to one left and copy it over to one right, and it'll show my coverage. This works as long as you haven't changed the angle, the throw distance, or the barrel. Then you don't have to make the full beam shape again. So in this case, actually, I've saved myself a lot of work. I have a pretty good system here. So all of these lights, these first 3 are the same throw distance, they're at the same angle, and they're the same barrel and same type of light. So I can actually copy these over to all of my areas. Now, you may remember from the first video that we have these 2 areas that are dropped down. They're not in the same grid as the others. However, when we looked at it and worksheeted it in the section, we were able to get the same angle. So it's okay if I actually use this again to look at these areas, because what I'm seeing here is that I actually do need these areas. Even though they're kind of at the edges, they're in important spots, especially this one here. We're at the edge of the beam and we want some overlap. The edge of the beam is dimmer than the center of it, so a little overlap makes it even. It doesn't make a dim spot. And places like this, where there isn't any light at all, that's going to be a dark spot. So I'm going to go ahead and draw those beams in as well. So with this worksheet, I just want to reiterate that you're going for accurate but not beautiful. These are tools for you. They are not your final light plot. So make sure they're legible and put all of the necessary information on them, but don't spend a lot of time trying to make it perfect. I know that you're going to turn these in, but in real life, you're not going to turn them in. This is just for you. Next, I need to draw new beams for the 3 people standing on the deck. For me, that's 4 center left, and 4 center right. The throw distance here is shorter. So the actor is standing in a smaller part of the beam. I'm going to make those beams exactly like I made the others, but they're going to be somewhat smaller. 2 of them are easy. If you remember from the last video, 4 left and 4 right are on the ground like the other areas, and we were able to get nearly the exact same angle from pipe 8. So that's this person here coming up to pipe 8. And I actually want a similar shutter cut because I want to know that if they go stand against this wall, then they're not going to be in a dark spot. So I can use the same beam from the others because the angle, throw distance, fixture, and barrel haven't changed. What I haven't done yet is draw the beams for my upstage areas. But we know that 2 of them are easy. If you remember from the last video, 4 left and 4 right were on the ground like the other areas. So we were able to get a very similar angle from pipe 8. I also want a similar shutter cut because I want to know that if people stand against this wall, they're not going to be in a dark spot. So since this is so similar to our other lights, I can use the same beam as I did before. Now I need to draw new beams for these 3 areas on the deck. For me, that's 4 center right, 4 center, and 4 center left. I need a new beam because the throw distance has changed. Since they're standing on this platform, they're much closer to the light, so they're in a narrower part of the beam. So I'm going to make these beams exactly like I did the others, and they'll be somewhat smaller. I'm going to run out of line here at 6 feet. It's going to go off the page. So it's okay. Again, I'm just trying to get the shape of the beam. So my coverage stage right to stage left is looking pretty good. I don't have any real dark spots and I have a good amount of overlap. Since this is our first system, you might find that you have too many areas, or maybe you don't have enough areas and you do have some dark spots. So you can always go back and revise. Now is a good time to do that. So now that I've drawn my beams on my plan, I'm going to draw my lights on the pipe where they're hanging. So to look at this, I'm going to go back to my section. Let's just look at the first downstage row of lights. So those are hung on pipe 13. So now I'm going to go back to my plan. And I'm going to find pipe 13. So since these lights are pointed straight ahead at my area, I'm going to find the center of the beam and go straight out to pipe 13. That's where my light's going to hang. And remember, the light goes on the pipe where you figured it out in the section. It doesn't go on the edge of the beam. So I'm going to draw these lights right now. I'm also going to use the correct symbol for these lights. You might need to review the USITT standards and make sure you're using the right symbol for a 70 degree. It's a source 4 outline with 2 lines in the barrel. So after I draw these lines in, I'm going to go back to my old friend, the conceptual hookup. And you'll notice I reformatted. This is getting less conceptual, and it's becoming the actual hookup that you'll turn in at the final. My possible fixtures have just become the fixtures that I've chosen, and they're source 4 70 degrees. They're conventional, so for the purpose of this class, that's going to mean they're 575 watts. The color I chose is based on my calculations, so it's Li 035. That's the pink that I want. And here I have the purpose. So for me, this is pink front light, and this is where it focuses. So pink front light at 1 left. I'm going to add my channel numbers in a circle behind the light based on what I already gave them. So the last thing I'm going to do with these lights is put the position in my hookup and draw them on my worksheet. So here I have channel 1, 2, 3. That's 1 left, 1 center, 1 right. And now they're on pipe 13. Now I know that. I'm going to draw the position on my worksheet, and I only need to draw the positions that I'm using. So this is pipe 13. So I'm making sure that my pipe doesn't go through the units so that the units are clear. I can tell what they are. For my next row of front light, I'm hanging on pipe 11. So that's right here near the plaster line. But when I go to my plan, I actually find out that pipe 11 here, it crosses center line, but it doesn't actually extend all the way out to where I've drawn my lights. So in a pipe grid, this is not a big deal. It's very easy to add a pipe. So I'm going to add 2 pipes right near where pipe 11 is on both sides. You'll notice that I can't exactly align where my new pipes are, and that's just because of the hanging hardware. It's okay. So just to make this clear for the electricians, I'm going to call this pipe 11A, and I'm going to call this pipe 11B, so they know that I've added them. Then I'm going to draw my lights in just like I did before. So I'm going to keep doing this until I've drawn all of the front lights in the system on this plot. So when we do our final plot, it's going to be really easy because you're just going to take these sheets and lay them on top of each other. And then all of a sudden you're gonna have a light plot that's complete, and it just has to be drawn neatly. So when you watch me do that, you saw me make a few mistakes and you saw me add some pipes and make some choices, and that's fine. So if I go back to my conceptual hookup, I've gone ahead and put in my position, and some of these are revised from what I thought they would be. Because things like 13, 14, and 15 here, when I worksheeted it, it looked like 14 was on pipe D, which is fine, but because I'm only seeing center line, when I went up to do my next area, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't have a pipe there. So I added 2 pipes here. And I also, on 7 and 11 here, it looked like they weren't quite aligning stage left to stage right with my areas, and I can't tell that from this section. So what I did, instead of adding a pipe that was so close to this pipe, I added a sidearm, which is just a thin pipe with a C-clamp on the end, and it can help you get about 18 to 20 inches away from the pipe. So I did that to make it easier on the electricians. So I also added that into my conceptual hookup, which is now very quickly becoming my hookup. So sidearm, sidearm. The other thing that I added here is I added frost to my color. Frost is just a clear gel that spreads the beam and softens it just a little bit, so you don't get that hard edge. So in pretty much all of my system light, I would say in all of my system light, I want frost in addition to my color, because when the actor moves through it, I don't want to see those hard edges on their face, and I don't want to see the hard edges on the set. So every week you're going to turn this plan and this section in with your beams on it. I don't need to see the scraps of the individual beams. If you need more than one front light system, because that's what your research is telling you and that's what you want in your show, but maybe you've used all your LEDs. If you want the angle to be the same, you can just draw an identical light about 18 inches away from the one you've drafted and give it its own channel number. You don't have to re-worksheet. If you want a change in angle or to use a different fixture, you have to do this process again.